How are we doing tonight? There we go. I love that participation. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Yvonne English. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation here at Grove City College. Among other things, we actually run the speaker series, and this is the Richard G. Staley 62 Visionary Entrepreneur Speaker Series. It's the last one, sad face, right, of the semester. Hopefully you've been able to enjoy some of our speakers. If you have any questions about the center or other things that we do, you can find us at gccentreprenurship.com. On Twitter, it's at GCC Entrepreneur, and you can find us on Facebook as well. We're very prolific that way. So I'm very excited about tonight's speakers. I love it when alums come back and share what they're doing. And this particular alum is very special to me. And she is going to tell you a story that will blow your mind. Bar is high now, Samantha. All right, and to introduce our speaker, Senior Entrepreneurship Major, Carolina Lagerquist. Come on down. Woo!
So I first met Sam in an innovation class my freshman year. She was that person, the cool athlete, the real entrepreneur, and an upperclassman. So I really wanted to be her friend. So I actually got to be on her team, and so you can imagine my excitement when that happened. I'm sure I wasn't any help on that project at all, but Sam was gracious and patient, and I've learned so much over the last few years from her about what it means to actually be an entrepreneur. So you're definitely in for a treat tonight. Sam is a 2014 grad from Grove City with an English degree and loves sports, startups, and seeing hard work pay off. She was a major contributor to the women's soccer team, leading the squad in goals for 2 years while also helping the program make history at the NCAA tournament in 2012. When she was 19, she had her first startup idea while she was out visiting her sister, the founder and CEO of Food Spotting in San Francisco. While she's the first to admit that she knew absolutely nothing about business, she had a vision for what she wanted the college athletic recruiting process to look like and made it happen. A little while later, her startup went on to be named Inc. magazine's top 4 coolest college startups in America. After graduation, Sam raised money to support her first nonfiction book project and then moved to San Francisco in September of 2014. By day, she's a project manager at LoveTap, and by night, she continues to work on Profile Passer, keep up with her blog, and play semi-professional soccer with the San Francisco Nighthawks. So please help me in welcoming Sam Weber to the stage.
Is this on? Is it working? All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for everyone coming out tonight. And thank you to the Center of Entrepreneurship and the college and a lot of just really good friends and family that are in the room. It's really great to be home, to be honest, and really fun to come back to campus and be able to share my story and talk about just the really exciting work I've been able to be a part of over the last few years. The title of this talk is Stop Talking, Start Doing, and this is a mantra that I have developed while I was in school here. And what I found was that it's really easy when you're in college to talk about the future. Well, when I graduate, I'm going to do this, or after I have money, I'm going to do this, or after I start a family, I'm going to do this. And what I found personally was that if you can just start doing something, take a step towards whatever it is that you're working towards, you can accomplish a lot more than you think. And the best time to start a company is actually when you're in college, when you're young, because you'll find that people are most willing to help you if you have that coachable attitude and you're willing to ask for help. And so it's a perfect time. If you fail, you have an amazing amount of experience to talk about in a job interview, and if you succeed, the sky's the limit. So that's kind of the title of the talk. Tonight, there's 2 goals for this. Is one, to challenge you to talk about and think about what you're really, really passionate about. So whether that's something that's maybe a problem that breaks your heart and you've become very passionate about, or if it's something you love. For me, that's soccer. And what are ways that you can engage with that in your career, in your work, and find ways to kind of integrate that into your lifestyle. And so that's something that I've been able to do while starting this company, and it's honestly what sustained me over time to continue to work through that. The other goal of the night is just talking about perseverance. So oftentimes when you start a startup, people will talk about it's really hard to start a startup. but they leave that in just such general, broad terms. And you kind of walk away thinking, okay, cool, it's hard to start a startup. What does that mean? And I don't think enough people really give you tangible examples of challenges that they've gone through and how that you persevere through that to continue to find success. And so even preparing for this talk, I'm normally someone who prepares maybe last minute. I need the deadline to do my best work. But about 6 weeks ago, I really started thinking about what do I want to say at GrowthCity. This is kind of a bigger stage for me to speak at. And I started kind of putting together my slides. There's really exciting stuff going on in my company. So I was excited to do this. And then about 4 weeks ago or so, some really crazy stuff happened, and I went from being excited to talk to thinking that this talk was going to be all about how I killed my startup in the last 4 weeks, and would have to kind of talk about that, to now we're in a really great place. So I'm going to walk you through what that actual experience was and give you a tangible example of when you really feel like you've hit rock bottom and there's no way to keep going. How to take the next step in doing that. So that's what I hope you get out of the night, is to think about what you're passionate about and to also see examples of how important it is to persevere when things go wrong. So the idea for Profile Pastor came about my sophomore year of college. I went out to visit my sister in San Francisco, who had started a company called Food Spotting, which is an app that allows you to search for dishes instead of just restaurants. And so say you're in Seattle and you're wanting to find the best chicken parmesan, but you don't know where to find it. You can type in chicken parmesan to the app. You can see all the restaurants that have it around you. And my sister went on to sell this company for $10 million to OpenTable my junior year while at GrowthCity. And while I was in San Francisco out visiting her, I was an English major. I was thinking about going to law school, and I got introduced to all these tech entrepreneurs for the first time. And I just remember like talking to them and thinking, wow, you have like a really cool lifestyle. You get to work on things you're really passionate about. You're making good money, like you're enjoying your work. This seems like something that I would actually really like to do. So how do you come up with a good idea? And the best advice I got was think of a problem that you've personally experienced, and then try to come up with a solution to it. So that night I was going back, I was in my sister's apartment, I was thinking through the recruiting process that I had gone through for soccer. And a couple weeks before this trip, I had actually met up with a teammate of mine who was a very, very talented athlete. A lot of our teammates had gone on and played soccer at UCLA, Penn State, these top D1 schools. 2 of my former teammates are going to play on the Olympics this summer. And so we had seen great success with our teammates and the level we were playing at. This one teammate did not get recruited at all, and she was talented enough to play at the next level. And I had met up with her 2 weeks before this trip out to San Francisco to see my sister, and she was really suffering from depression and anxiety, and it was something that was just really breaking my heart. And I realized that when you're an athlete and you're preparing your whole life towards playing at the next level, and you're doing everything right, you have the talent, you know you're good enough, and it doesn't work out, you are left just wondering, like, what is my identity? Like, it's been in this sport. And so I saw the effects of the system not working, and it was something that stuck with me, and I thought of a company to kind of work around. So before I kind of talk a little bit about the success that we've had and the challenges, I think it's really important to point out that I was just an English major who had a vision of what I wanted the athletic recruiting process to look like. And particularly for this room, by Grover standards, I was a very average student here. Outside of, like, I mean, I loved playing soccer. I spent my time doing that. I was very involved with my friends and community, but academically, I mean, I thought it was so hard getting through my classes here. And since Grover success is so much measured by GPA and your grades and what you're doing on your tests, by all of those standards, I was very, very average, yet I had this vision of what I wanted to do, and I was really passionate about it and worked really, really hard and was very driven. And so by those standards, you can be successful in life as well. And so I think that's just very important, is that you don't have to be the most popular person on campus or have the best GPA or scoring the best on these tests to be successful in life after GrowthCity. So I'm going to show you a demo video of our actual product and what it looks like, so you can get an idea for what it is that we do.
Alright, so you're an athlete. Looks like you're doing everything right to get recruited. You're training hard, playing at the top showcase tournaments in the country, and you just emailed your player profile out to 50 college coaches. It's just a matter of time until you're committing to a great team, right? Well, probably not. See, the truth is that college coaches get up to 1,500 emails or messages every single month from players just like you. Odds are your profile probably just got dumped into a spam folder, and the majority of those coaches will never watch you play. But we have some good news. Profile Passer can help you increase your exposure to college coaches and create more opportunities for college coaches to come watch you play. Here's how it works. Sign up on our website and start creating a profile today. Then when you get to your next showcase tournament, check into the tournament on Profile Passer and automatically see the list of colleges who actually showed up to your tournament. You can then search through the list of coaches and find schools that match what you're looking for in a college team. For example, you can search by a school's average SAT score to get in, the division of the program, and the position of the coach. You can then learn more about the school and the coach's profile, and then pass your profile and game schedule, mobile to mobile, to up to 10 college coaches checked into the same tournament. Check your activity feed to see the tournaments you've checked into, who you've set your profile to, and the coaches who have viewed your profile. When a coach receives your profile, they can then learn more about you, like how to get in touch, your test scores, and who you are as a player. If they like what they see, they can easily walk over to your field to watch you play. At the end of the tournament, go back and see an overview of all the schools you connected with. So if you're sick of wasting time emailing college coaches, not knowing who actually came to your tournament, and missing opportunities to get college coaches to watch you play, then sign up for Profile Passer today. Profile Passer. Check in, pass, play.
So that's just a demo of kind of how it works from the player's side. But to give you an understanding of the problem that we were solving, basically today, players who are trying to get recruited will create this athletic resume, this profile, that's literally a piece of paper. And when they go to a showcase tournament or a game or a scouting event, there will be a parent that literally stands on the sideline handing out profiles to any coach that happens to walk by the field. And oftentimes that's not even your parent, so you really have no idea if your profile is getting passed out. And it's being very randomly distributed to schools that you may or may not be interested in. So it's this very broken system of being in the right place at the right time. On the flip side, you might have an online profile through a recruiting service, and you might send your profile through an email to hundreds of coaches at a time. And again, these services are promoting basically and encouraging players to just mass email out this profile or cast a wide net. And what we found is that coaches are getting about 1,500 emails per month from players who know nothing about their programs. And so for the players who are actually interested in that school specifically, they're not able to stand out because there's just too much information that's out there. And so what we're doing is we're really trying to connect players and coaches on the field. So just like an employer would never hire someone based off of a resume without doing an interview, a college coach is never going to recruit someone based solely off of a profile without watching that player play in person. And so what we're doing is we're driving those connections on the field where you check in on the app, and you just click the next slide there. You're able to check into an event on the app, and you're able to basically see the coaches who are there and the players who are there as well. You can click down here on that. So it's a really great tool that basically is trying to drive these connections, and players are able to set search filters. So maybe there's 300 or 400 schools there, or there's maybe 3,000 kids there. A coach can say, well, I'm looking for a player with a GPA between 3.5 and 4.0 who plays for it, who's in state. So it's filtering that all down, and then players are only allowed to share their profile with their top 10 schools. And what we found with coaches is they're actually opening our profiles because they know the player has done some research if they're putting them in their top 10. So that's a little bit of how the app works, what the company is. But I want to talk a little bit about dealing with failure. So when I was a senior here at Grove City, I had decided to do Startup Weekend, which a lot of students I know have been starting to go down to Pittsburgh and do that event. And afterwards I got connected and found out about Alpha Lab, which is this accelerator that's in Pittsburgh. They have about 150 companies that apply each year. They interview about 20 and they pick 6 to do the program. And so it's a 20-week cycle. You get $25,000 in investment. You have 4 mentors assigned to your company. You get office space. At the end, you do demo day. And so I came out of Startup Weekend, had some success, decided I wanted to apply to Alpha Lab and try to get some funding and bring this idea to life. So I applied. I thought my application was really good. I had also applied that summer to do an internship with the National Soccer Coaches Association of America for a marketing internship. And both applications felt like they were really good. So I remember waking up on a Monday morning at Grove City here, checked my email before I even got out of bed, and I see I got 2 emails. One from the National Soccer Coaches Association and one from Alpha Lab, from Innovation Works. So I opened the NSCAA one first, and it says, you know, sorry, but you didn't get this internship. You know, maybe you should apply next year. So I'm feeling kind of disappointed, but I know that I have this like email sitting there from Alpha Lab. I'm like, all right, God, like I am not going to do this internship because I'm going to go to Alpha Lab this summer. So I open up this email from Alpha Lab, and it again says, we've had hundreds of people apply for this, and your application was really good, but I'm sorry, but we didn't get in this this cycle. And there was a personal note that was in there from Jim Jen, who's the director, that said, Sam, we normally don't give feedback to any of the companies, but if you do want to like follow up and just learn a little bit more about why we didn't take you, like we're willing to do a phone call with you. And so I read the email and thought, well, why would I talk to them? I don't want to really hear about that right this second. So I took a day, honestly, to just cry. I was around all of my friends who were juniors at the time. They all had internships lined up or jobs lined up for the summer. This was like the spring of my junior year, and every option that I had put my money on basically for my summer, what I just got rejected from. And so I was left kind of sitting there, one, feeling really bad about just, I didn't know what I was gonna do, and two, comparing myself to everyone else I was around and all my friends who had all these things lined up. And so I took a day, did cry. Tuesday kind of was like trying to think, okay, well, what is the next step for me? Wednesday, set up a call with Alpha Lab to just get some feedback. And that call turned into me convincing them that they should give me an interview. And they decided to do that, but the deadline was I had to interview in 48 hours. So while everyone else interviewing for this had an entire week, I had basically 48 hours to put together a presentation. I had no idea what I had to present about. So I remember calling a really good friend I had met at Startup Weekend, and she suggested, hey, like you need to connect with Darren Grove, who is actually a Grove City alumni that runs TrueFit. And so I called Darren and I said, I got this interview with Alpha Lab, but I just found out about it yesterday, and it's tomorrow. Can you meet? Like, can we work this out? Can you help me? And so he says, yes. If you can come into the office tomorrow at 6 a.m., we will work through this presentation. And I think my interview was at like 11 a.m. or something in the morning. So I remember I also had midterms that week. I remember sitting in the library till it closed. I was trying to put together like a demo video of what it was. I knew I'd want to present that in my presentation. I remember waking up at like 5 a.m. Friday morning, driving to Cranberry, sitting there for 2.5 hours, putting together this presentation, rushing to Alpha Lab, walking in the door right when I was supposed to go in, and then I got inside and I really had no idea like who was even going to be in the room. And it ended up being like 8 VCs, like men who were all way older than me, way more experienced. I'm like this 20-year-old, 21-year-old girl who's never done anything like this before. I go through my presentation. I think you get like maybe 20 minutes or so. They ask you a bunch of really hard questions. I walked out. I'm just like exhausted at this point. And I felt like really good about it. I felt like I did a really good job. But as you walk out, they're like, okay, we'll tell you if you got in 2 months. And so you're just like, all this adrenaline is building up, and then you walk out and you have no idea what's going to happen. So long story short, I actually was in South Africa with my soccer team, and I got an email that I had been accepted. They actually decided to take 10 companies my cycle. And so then it turned into, I got in, but how are you going to make this work while you're in school and playing soccer this next semester? So this is a program that I did my senior year in the fall. And this is actually an email that I wrote to Jim at Alpha Lab. And so it just says, you know, this was an emotional week for me starting on Monday with your decision not to interview Profile Passer, and then obviously ending with our exciting time together yesterday. I think this week was a perfect example of what the entrepreneurial journey is like, full of ups and downs. As an athlete and now a CEO, I've learned to never give up on my dreams and the importance of having an unshakable faith in my ability to get the job done. I've been working on Profile Passer for the last 1.5 years, and I'm so excited to see what my company is able to accomplish this summer. To me, this just like captures really what being an entrepreneur is about. There will be tons of people who say no to you or don't see your vision or think your market is too niche, and you can't see how you're going to find a way forward. And it's in those moments that you have to just find a next step, and sometimes just not take no for an answer. So getting into Alpha Lab was definitely unexpected, but it really opened the door. So this is a photo from demo day. So at the end of this 20-week cycle, you get to pitch your company to roughly 300 to 500 people, depending on the venue. You get 8 minutes to tell them what you did in 20 weeks. And this was just a really, really great experience, and probably the first time I told that story in front of a really big crowd. So this is back my senior year again. In 2014, we actually launched the first version of the app. It was pretty successful. We partnered with a league in Maryland and Virginia, the Club Champions League, and had over 400 players and 50 college coaches check in and use the app. And our first athlete was actually recruited successfully in the first weekend, which was really, really unexpected. And again, kind of fun stories of just like being scrappy as a founder. I remember I had the flu the weekend that this event was going on. And in that photo, I'm actually writing a paper for my Shakespeare class that I had to submit that day. This is at the tournament. But I remember I was really, really, really sick. And I asked my mom, I was like, can you come with me to Maryland? Because I don't think I can drive myself there. I'm like way too sick to make it. And so my mom picked me up. We went to Maryland just like we were going to a soccer tournament ourselves. Sat up there, an athlete got recruited. And I remember just at the end saying to her that if nothing else happens with this company, if everything fails, the fact that one athlete got recruited using this, to me, that made the whole thing worth it, because that athlete connected with a school they otherwise wouldn't have, and got to have the college soccer experience that I got to have as well. So the next month we had also some great traction. So we partnered with this event down in Florida, and we had a 98% sign-up rate, which is like unbelievable. But unfortunately, I ran out of money at the time. I didn't have an engineer at the time. We had a ton of bugs, and we actually didn't even end up getting to do the event because the technology basically broke. And so I didn't have the resources to fix it at the time. So I'll get back to kind of what happened next. But during this time also, I applied to this competition that Inc. was running for the coolest college startup in America. And it's thanks to Mrs. Stillwagon, actually, that I even entered this competition. I remember she sent me the application, and I was thinking to myself, well, there's no point in applying to this. Some kid from Harvard's going to win this. Like, Grove City is never going to get into a competition like this. So I actually decided not to apply. And I drove a friend down to Pittsburgh to do a job interview. And I remember cleaning out my email, and I came across this email from Mrs. Stillwagon again. And I was thinking, like, well, if I can fill the application out in 20 minutes, then I'll do it. My friend had to go pick her up. Whatever. So I filled this application, and then I let it go. Totally forgot about it. And I was sitting in Shakespeare class, and I maybe looked at my phone and saw that Inc. tweeted at me, and I was like, whoa, what's left of this? So I look at it, and I'm like, I'm not really looking that hard. And then then the class ends. I'm waiting for this class to end to really dig into what the heck is this? And I get out of the class and I look, and it says that I got named to the top 16 of coolest college startups in America. And I was just like, I did not even it did not even compute that this was this competition. I was really trying to figure it out. And anyway, they ended up running this March Madness style competition. So they actually vote, they match you up against another startup, and you have people vote. So if you were here 2 years ago, then you probably voted in this for me. This was a huge campaign we were in on campus. And we ended up actually beating out a company that was in Alpha Lab with me, another athletic company from GW. And then we beat out a company from MIT actually as well to finish in the top 4, which is really, really, really cool. So that got us a ton of press, and it's kind of fun to just be in a small pond, to be honest, because we had TV stations coming to campus and they were interviewing me. We got a lot of media online and stuff. And it was really cool to just kind of be part of that and be able to tell this story of being a young entrepreneur in college, playing soccer, and starting this company. So after that, I'll be really honest, I ended up burning out. So I had said I kind of was running out of resources. We had this great sign-up rate, but we didn't have a way to fix it. I couldn't find a team. I couldn't find funding in Pittsburgh. And so I ended up moving to San Francisco in the fall after I graduated. And was kind of trying to figure out if I wanted to keep working on this, if I could do that in San Francisco. and kind of got to a point where I just really wanted to make some money, and this kind of felt like a dead weight, honestly. It was just like I had people who'd put money in, so I felt compelled to keep working on it from that, and I loved the idea, but I did not know how to go forward or build a team or find money. And so I honestly put it on the back burner until I met someone who helped me start over a year later. So this was about last April or so that I met someone in my church in San Francisco who's an engineer. We started working together and basically rebuilding the app from scratch. And it started to turn into something really serious. And so something that really got me back into it, really excited, was I was just reminded of like why I was doing this. I love soccer more than anything. It has been such a huge piece of my life. Some of my best friends that I have, especially from the school, are teammates. It's a sport that has allowed me to go to Honduras, to South Africa, to connect even in the neighborhood I live in, San Francisco, that is heavily Hispanic, play in the mission. It's just been something that has taken me all over the world and created such great opportunities for me. And so I just remembered that, like, this is why I'm doing this. This is for the players, it's for these coaches, it's to make this game that I love better. And so that's why I really started over. But then 6 weeks ago happened. So as I said, coming into tonight, like 6 weeks ago I started preparing for this talk and just thinking, you know, there's a lot of great stuff. We're about to relaunch. We have great partnerships. We have some professional athletes getting involved. Like, this is going to be an awesome talk. And then 6 weeks ago, I had an investor sign the first check. And the next day, my CTO, someone I was working with that was a Christian, got together with me and basically told me that she wanted half of my company and was going to quit and walk away if that wasn't the deal. And I'll kind of pause here to talk a little bit about lessons learned. So I think, like, especially being in a Christian school, in a Christian environment, we often put like extra trust in working with people that are other Christians, and sometimes don't get things put in writing or in agreements that should be. And I've had this happen now a couple different times where I've gotten into a situation like that. And what I've learned is that setting expectations up front and getting things in writing protects relationships and actually makes you much more successful. So a lot of this is on me, that I did not firm up this relationship when I should have. But I got myself into a situation where this person wanted half the company and honestly quit, then wanted over $200,000 for the code, which was my product that I was going to be launching in a month, and moved to South Africa, of all places, to add the icing on the cake. So I went from literally about to launch, getting investors' checks, to in this situation where I now no longer had code, did not have a product, and if I could not deliver in a month, I had gotten into a place where I might have poisoned the market because I couldn't execute. And so, talking about hitting rock bottom, I honestly was in a place where I thought about just getting on a train, moving out of San Francisco, leaving everyone that I possibly knew, because I just could not face the fact that I had gotten this far and was this close and then could not deliver. At this point, I've like exhausted every personal relationship I have in this market. I put my name out on the line so much that I'm going to deliver this product, and to get into a place where I didn't even have one anymore, that was very, very difficult for me. So this is another example of, like, you don't have to figure out the right solution. Like, what is the ultimate thing that's going to solve this huge problem? It's a matter of aligning next little steps. And so I was really, really worried about, like, okay, I have these investors. Everyone's probably going to walk now. Like, I don't have any way to do this. And what I found was it's really important to have a great community of people around you that can help advise you in those situations, can build you up, and remind you that they're working with you and partnering with you because they believe in you to deliver a solution, and not necessarily even in the product. They trust you to figure out what can come next. And so I was really, really fortunate to have just a really great group of people around me who helped me source, screen, interview, and hire new engineers. And honestly, our product is better today than it was 6 weeks ago, and found amazing new talent, and put together basically a plan where we're still going to be able to launch May 14th. We're partnering with a club and launching down in Atlanta with about 600 athletes. We're flying in at the end of this month to teach a recruiting course to them and prep them. And honestly, we've gotten a lot of professional athletes to invest and get involved even in the last like 3 weeks or so. And so I hope this is just an example of like when you literally can't see a way forward, to just find that next step and things will kind of come together. So this is just a really great quote that I love, that if you really want something and really work hard and take advantage of opportunities and never give up, you will find a way. And I think a lot of the startups that fail, honestly, are people who just quit too soon. And a really good recipe for success is working on a problem that you personally have experienced, and then also just tapping into that passion. Because I loved this so much and cared about the market, I wasn't disappointed because I thought, well, maybe I won't like sell this company one day and make millions of dollars. It was like, I can't deliver this solution that I know is going to change lives. And when you're driven by that type of passion, then you can find a way to take one next step after another, and you find a way to figure it out. And so that's been really true for me. One of the things I really wanted to talk about tonight too is the idea of sharing your story. So I read this book recently that talks about being a connector. And so it talks about like people like me will meet a lot of people, and you never know when those people are going to help you in your journey. And so that's why I love meeting people and connecting with them. And what I found throughout the last 4 years of working on this is that the more I share my story and show my passion for what I'm doing, the more people want to help, or they get involved, or they make an introduction or make a connection. And so it's really important to share your story in person, online, everywhere you go. So a really great story and an example of that is a couple months ago, I was in San Francisco. I saw on Twitter that Landon Donovan was going to be in town speaking at this Wells Fargo banking event about his credit, which didn't seem that interesting. But I wanted to go see Landon Donovan. So I like found on Twitter like basically a way to get a ticket. There were about 100 people that got into this event. And I went to the event, listened to him talk about credit. And then at the end you get to like do this autograph session. And so there's about 100 people there, they all line up, and they're being very strict with the line. So like you have one item, you get that signed, you take a photo, you're out, and moving things very quickly. During his talk I had noticed that he pointed out his agent in the back of the room. So he had talked about getting his first check at 16, and he points to this guy. I'm like, okay, that's his agent. I need to talk to him. So I'm in the room, I'm in this line, and I kind of walk past his agent, give him a little pitch, hand him my card, get back in line, and I'm waiting to talk to Landon. So it's just like getting closer, thinking like, how do I say this like in 30 seconds? Like, what are all the advice I've gotten about giving an elevator pitch? Because I never thought I would actually have to do this, but now I actually have to do this. And so I'm getting up there, and I hand him the ball, he starts signing it, and I'm like, hey Landon, so my name's Sam, like just moved to San Francisco, I've played my whole life, I'm really, really passionate about the recruiting industry, I just feel like this is a really broken system, whatever I said, and told him about the company. And we're taking our pictures, I'm still talking, and then at the end, I'm like, this guy's like coming over to like move me out, you can tell I'm gonna talk more, and Landon like stops him, and he was like, hey, that's like a really cool idea. So how's it like different from other recruiting services? So I started telling him a little bit about that. This guy's like trying to move me out of the line. And at the end, he says to like, you know, I'm really interested in entrepreneurship now that I've retired. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Hand him my card, force it into his hand, watched him put it in his pocket, and think, well, maybe like his wife will see this when he does the laundry, and she'll hand it to him and be like, what is this? And he'll remember. And so, anyway, fast forward a few weeks, we're working with another professional player who got his email address, introduced us. We did a call like a week and a half ago or so, and he's been very, very engaged about getting involved. But that's just a really good example of like, share your story everywhere you go, because you never know like when it's going to be useful. And because I had shared my story so many times before that, in longer forms and shorter forms, I was really prepared to just share that story with him. Had 30 seconds and it really paid off. So it also pays off in many ways. So these are all pictures of either World Cup players or national team players. This is the, as you can see, the Wells Fargo logo in the back, my picture with him. But over the last couple of years or so, I've gotten to meet a lot of professional athletes, get them involved with what we're doing. And that has just been a really great way to add more credibility to what we're doing and spread the word and have them sharing our story as well and sharing this vision. So this has not publicly been announced yet, but we're going to announce this probably in the next week or so. But Shannon Box just won the World Cup and has become a really good friend over the last few months. So last month they actually got to go up to Portland and film some marketing videos with her. And she's become very, very actively involved. So I was going to share this video that we filmed with you guys too.
What interested me about Profile Passer after speaking with Sam and the differences that I saw was that it really connected the coaches and the players where it mattered most on the field. And it really made the players themselves narrow their focus on what schools they're very interested in, because you can only pick 10 schools when you went to a tournament or signed into Profile Passer. And for the coaches, I thought it was a good benefit for them because they realized that these players were very interested in their schools. They weren't picking 100 schools, they were picking 10. And if they were one of them, they were really interested in it. What I also like about Profile Passer is that they recognize that the technology of Profile Passer itself is not going to get a player recruited, that it takes the entire understanding of the whole process, and that's where the education piece comes in. If the education piece is going to help the player start to understand and learn how to communicate with college coaches, it's going to help them research and figure out what schools are the right fit for them. And it'll help them answer their own questions of how to narrow their focus down to the top 10 schools that they might want. Overall, Profile Passer stood out to me because 1, it connected players and coaches on the field where it mattered most. 2, it educated players on the overall process so that they can find the right fit for them and be successful.
Hopefully this will go next. Can you click the thing again? So outside of Profile Passer, this has opened up a lot of other really cool projects for me to get involved in the soccer market, combining technology. So now that I've gotten to know a lot of these World Cup players, national team players, I've gotten really interested in women's issues within soccer. And so I'm actually going to be launching a podcast called the Women's Soccer Spotlight, which is highlighting stories of women working, playing, and coaching in the game, and then delicately highlighting stories of discrimination, especially within professional players. And so last Friday I just did my first interview with Lori Lindsay, who's a former national team player. We're going to be interviewing Megan Rapinoe and Abby Wambach and Shannon Box, and basically sharing this story. And this really taps into some things that I learned, honestly, at Grove City, which was actually Mr. Sweet's class, talking about becoming a thought leader. And so while this isn't directly necessarily related to recruiting, it's related to becoming a voice in this market and tapping into an issue, 1, that I'm really passionate about, but 2, that's giving me an opportunity to reach more and more people. And what I found too is when you're starting something like a podcast or a blog, gives you an excuse to literally talk to anyone you want to talk to. And they can say no if they want to, but it's a great opportunity to do that without doing like a very specific sales pitch, like, hey, let me tell you about my company. That always comes up indirectly when I'm pitching basically the same podcast as well. So if you're interested in soccer or women's soccer or anything like that, you'll have to check this out when I launch it in the next couple of months. The other thing that I've gotten involved in, and has become really a passion and what I want to build my career in, is combining technology and the sport in soccer. So I've actually been hired by several professional athletes, including Shannon Box, Christy Rampone, Abby Wambach, and Yelly Verbush, to help them build businesses, and using the knowledge that I've learned from how to market things, how to sell things, how companies are even structured or set up legally, and able to share that knowledge and experience with them, and combining what their passion is, what they want to do in post-retirement, to actually create businesses for them. And so this has been just something really, really, really fun to get involved in, and built a career in as well. So kind of wrapping up, I just want to kind of leave you with a couple of thoughts, which is that anyone can come up with a good idea. You don't have to have some special entrepreneurial spirit to come up with a good idea. You just have to have lived life and experienced problems and be observant of the problems that are around you. But what I'll say is that few have the courage to actually make it happen. So I really believe anyone can be an entrepreneur. But the people who don't are the people who are too afraid to take those next steps. Those are the people that are talking and not doing the doing. And so I would just encourage you that, especially if you're a student, you have an idea, to take some type of next step and be courageous to go out and try something. And if you fail, I'm telling you that you will have so much experience to talk about in a job interview that will help you get that job, which is what you always expected that you're going to do after graduation anyway. So this is also just something like, follow your inner voice, hold on to it, and don't ever let go, because eventually you'll turn the corner and look back wondering why you ever doubted. This is a note I took to myself while I was going through the last 4 weeks, honestly, which was, I have always had this very clear vision of what I'm trying to do. I'm so intimately connected with the problem I'm trying to solve, and I know what I've built is going to solve that problem. And it's staying true to that vision through all the ups and downs that are happening, and all the other outside forces that are kind of either derailing you or they're setting you up for more success. But don't ever give up on that vision, because you will turn a corner if you find those next steps, and you really will look back and wonder, like, why did I ever think that was such a big deal? Of course I was going to make it, because I know what it is that I'm out there trying to do. So the last thing is, just don't forget that you are never too young to start a company. I was 19 when I had this idea, and just because you're in college does not mean you are too young to do something while you're in school, or to be an entrepreneur right out of school as well. So that's all I have, and we'll open it up for questions as well.
The women's soccer team is in the house today, is that correct? Where are you guys?
A couple of them.
All right, welcome. We have some questions for Sam. Who'd like to ask a question? Just raise your hand, I'll bring the mic to you. Yes, Mr. Bill Mahaffey.
Congratulations, Sam, on your accomplishments. Is this idea scalable into other sports?
Yes, you are the 5th person maybe to ask me that today. So yeah, I mean, that's always the question I get asked from investors is, this is a very niche market, soccer, recruiting, club, the high school basically to college. And it's a question I've been answering for years. So yes, we could either expand into other sports and make this a much bigger market, or to be honest, as I've gone through this now over the last 4 years, what I've learned is that we can really expand within the soccer vertical. So I have experienced so many different problems within soccer that technology can fix, and that also is like related to what we're doing now. And soccer is the biggest sport in the world. So it's been pretty cool to kind of see the answer to that question evolve. I think that starting into another sport is like starting an entirely new business. So if we ever did that, honestly, I'd probably hire a me of whatever that sport is that intimately understands how it works and can replicate what we've done in another sport.
All right. Yeah. Kristen Franks. How are you, my friend? Good.
Hi, Sam. So I know you have experience with Love Tap, which was an unsuccessful app.
Yep.
How do you know, and I know you work with a lot of people who are trying to start businesses, when an idea for a startup isn't viable or when it just seems like a bad idea? Like what are the red flags, and what do you say to those people when you kind of realize it might not be the best idea?
Yep, definitely. So you're in a class I talked to yesterday or today. And so yeah, so for the last 9 months, I've actually been working for a startup in San Francisco. We were 3 to 4 people at the height of our company. It got venture backed. And it was honestly started by a really amazing entrepreneur who had been successful, but in my opinion was at a point in his career where he had the funding or knew he could raise money for basically any idea he had. And he cared about local commerce a lot. So he wanted people to spend money locally. And so one day he came up with this idea where, you know, what if you could like basically send a gift, like a pastry or a coffee from a local place through a text message or an email to a friend. Like that would be really cool, and that would promote local business. And so that's how this idea started. And so I came into this and it was a really great experience for me because I got to be part of a startup that had money, had funding, had an idea. We were kind of building the product at the time. And what I found was that we started with the solution of this really cool idea, that would be awesome if you could send a gift through a text message. But we didn't know what the problem was that we were solving. And so I spent the last 9 months really going market to market, like, hey, can recruiters send a gift to an interview candidate to thank them for the interview? Does that solve a problem? No. Can we partner with companies who are trying to promote employee engagement, where they're gifting things to their employees to keep them really happy? Is that really a problem we're solving? Not really. We tried to work with Airbnb hosts who are gifting incoming guests. And we thought, well, people are already spending money on things like wine and chocolate to welcome people to their Airbnb. Local travelers always want to know what the local spots are. They're always hungry when they arrive. Maybe this is a problem we're solving. And we found that maybe that actually is a problem that we're solving, but it wasn't scalable for us at the time of the company. So the company ended up failing. And I would just say that, like, I think pretty quickly I knew coming into that situation that this was starting with a solution and not a problem. But it might take other people longer to get that, especially if it's your own idea. You can get really caught up in this really cool thing to work on. But I think that's the telltale sign of usually whether or not something's going to be successful, is if you know you're starting with a problem.
Other questions for Sam? All right, Ben.
Sam, 2 parts really quickly. 1, what's your revenue model? And 2, what speed bumps do you foresee in the future?
I feel like I'm answering investor questions right now. So, okay, what are the speed bumps and what's the revenue model? So it's free for college coaches to use our technology. Honestly, colleges have varying budgets, varying bureaucracy that you have to work through to get something like this approved. And it's really key that the coaches are using it. So it's free for them. We make it as easy as possible for them. Time Magazine actually recently came out with an article highlighting the spending of the average club soccer family. And what they found is that parents are spending an average of $17,000 a year per athlete trying to get them recruited. So there is major money being spent in this market. And honestly, those parents are spending that money with the hope that they get a Division I scholarship and no real metrics or feedback on how that's going. And so what's been really important to me is to build a company that can make money and taps into that willingness to spend money, but also not taking people out of the recruiting equation because they can't afford the technology that helps them. So I've really tried to balance that, because for me, it's not building a company that's making money that's driving me, it's more solving the problem. And I've seen, like, definitely examples of families, and even especially living in San Francisco now, of amazing kids who are playing in these communities who never could afford technology that the parents who are spending $17,000 a year could afford. So for us, the business model, it's $120 per year if an individual athlete signs up. It's an annual subscription, but it's $100 a year if you can get the entire club to sign up per athlete. So generally a club might have about 160 players per club, so we can make about $16,000 per club that we sign up.
Other questions for Sam? All right, Cedric.
Hi, Sam. Professor Lewis, I think you graduated my first year here. But number one, as the business law professor, you've already touched on one thing I harp on in class. I don't care if it's your grandmother, get it in writing.
Yep.
That's the lawyer.
Lesson learned.
Okay. Are there any other problems or, I guess, experiences that you've come across that were addressed by some of your experiences here at Grove City? Some of the things that were talked about in your classes, or things that you go, oh, I remember we actually talked about this and now I'm faced with it.
So I would say the biggest lessons that I learned from Grove City were, one, actually Mr. Sweet and I have been talking about this a lot. So like I did study English, and I always have kind of had a hard time drawing conclusions to like, well, how did this really prepare me for what I'm doing today? Especially this much more liberal arts type of major. And one thing I would say is just like, I had to read a ton in that major. And it was a lot of really, really hard work. And it's, I think, prepared me to just have the stamina to do the amount of work I do today, regardless of probably what your major is. That's like across the board at Grove City. But I think that major takes a lot of extra time because it is all reading for the most part. I think that's one thing. Two is I learned a lot about storytelling from studying that. And that's a huge part of what makes a company, I think, successful, or at least for me, has been sharing that vision, sharing that story over and over again. And I really love doing that. Two, some of the relevant classes, honestly, I took accounting from Dr. McPeters, which was great. And that was my first introduction into just speaking the language of business. I learned terms and how some of just the finances, my personal finances, and then the finances of companies worked. And honestly, that's been very helpful. And then took a few different entrepreneurship classes with Mr. Sweet, like content marketing, SEO. And those things have been very helpful because as I'm working with some of these professional athletes, like I'm building websites, honestly, for a lot of them, and helping with the content marketing. And I learned how to build WordPress sites through class here. Since moved on and use Weebly now, but I learned how to basically like put together a website, and I've built probably 12 websites since I took that class my junior year since, and been able to make actually a lot of freelancing money off of that. So those were all, I think, really important lessons and classes that I took here that have prepared me. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Yes. Mr. Coulter, all right. We'll make our way over here.
Everyone got their extra credit, now they're leaving.
I'll wait.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mr. Coulter.
Making me feel bad.
It's all right. I would probably want to go study right now too if I were still here.
So part of this matching problem between players and coaches, then another dimension to it is matching colleges, right? And that's something. So I wonder if there's something that may be could be part of your revenue model, which is colleges buying names from you because colleges are trying to find people who are interested. So that's one element. But then also one of the challenges between connecting, a matching problem of students and colleges is just, there's 4,000 colleges in America, and most 17-year-olds know a handful, and maybe only the ones they've seen, in some sort of rankings or something like that, or a school they're familiar with from their state. But they might not know that there's some D3 or D2 school that they haven't heard of that could be a good match for them either intellectually or athletically. And so I wonder if there's a component of like, you've picked these as your 10, almost like a feature that would say you ought to think about X, Y, or Z. They might be a good fit for you. So I don't know if that, like the college matching element, came up.
So I'm actually really glad you brought that up. So that is another thing that makes us really different from other recruiting services out there, is that to give you a statistic, I think it's one male soccer player per recruiting class will transfer. That's a really high number. And that's speaking to, and also on the women's side, I think it's 50% of female athletes who are playing Division I soccer will transfer if they don't start within their freshman or sophomore year. And that speaks to expectations not being set up front. So even the players that are getting recruited are not often happy where they are, and that's a sign of it not being a college fit sometimes. Sometimes it's still a soccer fit. And so two things that we're doing to address that. One is, over the last 4 years, I've learned a ton about this market, about recruiting. I've talked to tons of college coaches and players, and I've gathered basically all of that knowledge and put together a recruiting course. So we actually do college nights with some of the major clubs, and people can purchase the course online. And we have taught players how to go through this whole process. So, like I said, and what Shannon said in the video too is true. Like, if you just use our technology, you're not going to get recruited. It is about all of the work that you did before you ever got to that event, and you need to know why your top 10 is your top 10. And so in that course, I've actually put together a ton of resources, external resources that help you do that college search, that will help you discover schools that are smaller, that are ones that you haven't heard of, that you might not have known of, and that you can see that this maybe really is a good fit for you. So that's one way we address it. The other way is that when you're going to these tournaments today, like I said, like it's just the parent handing out profiles on the sideline. You have no idea which coaches actually showed up. Oftentimes the event will give you a list of registered coaches, people who are supposed to come, but doesn't always translate into who actually is there. And so this app shows you, basically gives you a database of here are all the coaches who are here. And those players can set these search filters. So they can say, well, I'm interested in an academic school. I want a school that has a GPA that's what my GPA is, or something higher, or matches these SAT scores, or offers scholarships. They can set these search filters to find college soccer programs that match their academic and athletic profile. And also they can browse these coaches' profiles. So when you're at an event, you might see a coach with their gear on. Maybe it's a Grove City College coach and you're from California, so you've never heard of Grove City. You wouldn't take time probably to do a Google search on your phone and how it currently works today. But if you're on an app, you see Grove City, you type in, what's a Grove City College? It shows you that profile of that coach with the average SAT score to get into the school, with an overview of the athletic program. And it's actually a marketing tool for those colleges. And what we found when we launched and beta tested was players were discovering schools they had never heard of that were these D2 and D3 schools, and we're able to actually connect with them. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah. Let's see. We're just going to have you pass that down.
Hi Sam, congratulations first of all on all your success. Obviously being already an innovator in the recruiting industry, I'm just curious for you personally, what was it like for your recruiting process? What brought you to Grove City College? What got your interest here? I mean, you focus so much of your time on serving others and trying to help them accomplish their dreams. What was it for you that brought you there?
Well, my mom promised me a puppy if I would apply to Grove City College.
Did you get it?
I did. Finn is now 5 years old. So that's a very good question. So I'm from here. I'm from like the Pittsburgh area, and I'll be really honest. I actually I had heard of Grove City, but I didn't know anything about it. Certainly did not know it was academic until I got here. And I was actually getting recruited. I was looking at Pitt. I thought I was going to be playing at Pitt. Got injured my senior year in March. Kind of all fell through. And my other college option was Texas A&M, which was a really big school. That's what I wanted, was a big school with a big athletic program. And I remember my mom actually drove, she's gonna kill me for telling the story, but she drove me up here my junior year, was like, we're just gonna go meet with admissions. Just come up with some questions. You can just go in and ask them, whatever. So she puts me in the admissions. I did sleep the whole way up, that is true. And we got here, and so I go into the admissions office, and I'm prepared to start asking questions. And suddenly they start asking me questions. And quickly I realized that my mom set me in for an interview at Grove City. And fortunately she knew that I would do very well on my feet. And so the interview went well, and I remember walking out and I was so mad. And I'm just you're forcing me into this school, so maybe we really not want to go here. And then, as I said, these kind of things fell apart with my other recruiting process and everything. And I knew I could play soccer at Grove City. I had met with Coach. She had come to an ODP practice. And honestly, I was just kind of I want to make a college decision. I ended up wanting to stay close to home at the last minute. And so I ended up here. Failed every fitness test my freshman year. Super unprepared. Was not very excited about playing Division III soccer. Did not even play in the first 6 games. Finally found my stride and ended up being a leading scorer here. But the whole experience was just not what I expected at all. I remember getting here in orientation my freshman year. I was had done a lot of research about the English degree at other schools, but not here because I wasn't planning on going here. And I remember sitting in orientation and Dr. Brown starts talking about how Grove City is ranked, the English major at Grove City College is ranked at the 99th percentile in the country. And that was my first intuition or taste of, oh, this is a very academic school. And so for 4 years I feel I was always trying to play catch up with where am I? How is this place? And it's especially because I'm from here that I thought I would know that, but I didn't at all. So anyway, I ended up at Grove City. I have a puppy now. I made it out alive with the English major here. So.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right. There we go.
Hi, Sam. As the company has grown in its success, has your decision-making process as CEO changed throughout that? And if so, how has it changed?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and actually I've been very self-reflective about that, especially in the last couple of weeks. And I found that there's a balance of having that very coachable attitude and always wanting outside help and opinions, especially when you're young, because you're kind of like, I don't know what the right decision is. So you can kind of get into the state of like really questioning everything you do, but at the same time, like I have had a very clear vision of what I'm trying to do, and I do know the problem really well, and I do know the solution really well. And so balancing listening to those voices of all these outside voices that I've asked to get involved, and then also managing that with my internal voice. And yeah, I think especially in the last 3 months or so, as this has gotten very serious and we've raised money and are really starting to launch, that I think I've gotten a lot better at just being a lot more confident in the decisions I'm making and still taking in that outside advice, but not questioning every decision that I make and wondering like, oh, should I like double check with someone before I do anything? I found that I've gone in and out of stages of that as I've encountered challenges, or maybe like I've been very confident and then something has fallen apart, and then I'm like, I honestly don't know what I'm doing at all, and I'll go out and get like a lot of advice and won't be confident sometimes in making decisions. So I think that's something I've learned a lot over the last couple of years, is to still take in all that advice, but to be a little bit more confident that I can do this, I can be a CEO, and people will kind of follow my lead in terms of that.
So you said earlier you experienced like a bit of a burnout coming out of college, and I imagine that's really common among entrepreneurs who are just like pouring their heart and soul into these companies. What did you learn from that, and what are some ways that people can prevent that?
I think that's a really good question too. So my kind of job and career path in that in-between state of not working on this and then restarting it again was, I spent 4 months doing contract work at OpenTable. So that's a much bigger, well-funded, they just got bought for I think $3 billion a couple years ago. So a huge organization, but still as a startup. So experiencing what it was like to be in an organization like that has things like managers and a process for how things get approved and launched and all those things. So I got to experience that. I took a job at a company that came out of Y Combinator. I was hired as their first marketing lead, and thought this was going to be the dream job. Amazing salary, amazing benefits, like all the things of Silicon Valley that you kind of think of. And found that it was a horrible cultural fit. It was basically a company of all engineering guys who went to MIT or all these Ivy Leagues, me and one other girl who hated me, and I never saw two people go into a room to have a face-to-face meeting. And I just found this was like not an environment I could operate in. Like, I am a people person. For me to learn the product and market it, I had to be able to meet with people to learn it, and so that wasn't a great culture fit. I should have maybe stayed because that company just sold for like $40 million and I would have had equity. But I think I learned again that like money is not a driving force for me. It's like what I'm passionate about. And then I ended up working at LoveTap for the last 9 months or so. And I would say what I learned in that time frame of about a year kind of working on this was that like I really have no problem with authority, but at the same time, like I really love the freedom of working on things I want to work on my own schedule. And when I get really interested in something or passionate about, like having the freedom and the time and the flexibility to do that and pursue that idea. And so I think at the same time, like being in an environment and seeing how companies are run, I had more exposure with like, what's it like to be a manager, because I was managed finally. And those are things that I think are really hard when you're an entrepreneur in college, is maybe as you're interviewing people, like you may not have gone through an interview ever. And that was the case for me. Like doing some of my first interviews, I was like, I don't know how to ask the right questions. I don't even know what this looks like, because I didn't even apply for an internship in college. So I think being in that environment and kind of seeing how companies actually run and are led and the leadership styles of things, I took a lot of lessons from that.
Any other questions? Oh, we got one down here. Maddie. Hello, Maddie. I'm coming.
Thank you. Hi, Sam. So it was said earlier that you're still playing soccer. So I was just wondering how you balance being an athlete and putting so much time into a sport you love and also being a CEO.
One, I'm the most not fit soccer player you can meet right now, so I'm playing, but I'm definitely not in like the best condition I've been, so I don't feel as prepared playing as I have in the past. But to be honest, like, I'm just someone who can work for a lot of hours and get really excited about it, to the point that I like should say no to more things, and I should take more time to like sleep and eat and see people. So I kind of go in and out of these like waves of like really intense times where I'm like doing way too much, but it feels very exciting. I feel very engaged. I don't feel burnt out, to then like crashing. And so that's something I'm like working on learning how to do, is like, how do you be a little bit more balanced, because you will find literally the day after you graduate, you need 8 hours of sleep. And so it's like making the time for things like that. Like, you can't operate in the way that you do, honestly, in college for very long. He's had his hand up forever.
Who's that? In the back?
So like, dealing with college moves in high school athlete, you have to go through several barriers where sometimes you're not allowed time to talk during certain time periods. Does your website have anything to deal with like email or messenger where there's much more like fluctuation where you're allowed to talk to cookies?
Yeah, so a lot of athletes you'll find actually just don't even know what those recruiting timelines are. And to be honest, like off the top of my head, I couldn't even tell you what they are, but they're written down in a resource. So we have this like recruiting course that we've written, and we outline all of that for players, because it's also different for each division. And so we address that there, where we're educating people on what those timelines are. And then also within our app, like a coach cannot send a message or engage a player themselves. All they can do is view a profile. The player can get a notification that that's happened, but we don't allow for any recruiting regulations to be broken within the app, because a player, no matter what division, can always reach out to a coach. So they can always send a profile. So we foster that type of interaction, but we also make sure that the kind that break recruiting regulations don't happen within our technology.
Great. Any other questions? I don't want to miss anybody.
Over here.
Yes. All right.
As a hello. As a jobless senior right now, are there any open spots in Profile Passer? What would the starting salary look like?
Well, because it's Tuesday, I think you should start the basketball version of Profile Passer. There you go.
Well, hasn't this been fun tonight, everybody? Let's give Sam a hand.